Yeah, Curious Giorgio is keen on investing in another treehouse, I suppose.
So I saw a condo deal today in Kingston that is they're aiming it at student rentals with on-site property management and a guaranteed 2 years of rentals on the first 2 years. Although they could guarantee $5 a month, but
No, actually, what they'll do actually is they'll guarantee a pretty good rent, so that it looks attractive. So, I mean, Kingston, university town. So I mean, you know all the rain stuff. Chances are, even during a economic downturn / recession, the argument is that people go back to school if they lose their jobs. So university towns have a layer of insulation around them, which is, good. It's if you study the economic prospects of the town, is it a growing town, and is it, are incomes on the rise or jobs on the rise? Those are the types of things. I think you're always going to have a stable rental demand. How are those guaranteed rents? Just have to take a look, right? They could be guaranteeing $2,000 when market rent is $1,500, and you'll get $2,000 for the first 2 years. It'll look great.
Yeah, and then it'll tank.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the Kingston market, and the idea of having renters in there, like student renters, it just sounds like a pain in the ass. Although they have property management, so if you left it to them to answer all of the silly questions.
It's it's a student rental. At the end of the day, you're still, there's still going to be, it's still a student rental at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, is it as student rental-ish as, what Ming had, for example, 6 bedrooms in a bungalow sort of thing? It's not quite like that. However, it is still a student rental. You just have to take a look at the market. You have to take a look at for example, in Waterloo, one of the big things is that they're overbuilding, right? So, if they're overbuilding, then, sure, guarantee as much rent as you want for the first couple of years. It's still not going to be a great investment necessarily.
Where I just jumped in on this. What are you guys talking about? I heard
I saw this. There's a new condo going up in Kingston that's being aimed at, well, the thing I saw is aimed at investors. They're guaranteeing it for student rentals in the condo, on-site property management, guaranteeing the first 2 years of rental between $1,000 and $2,600. 2-bedroom units, they're saying no maintenance on them for the first 2 years. So, it sounds, I'm thinking where I'm at right now is for this year, I'm pretty busy with kids and a bunch of changes in my business. And so I was
kids,
yeah,
plural?
Kid. And so I was thinking, I've been kind of thinking about doing some sort of condo thing, because it would be, I've done condos in the past, and like you get a condo and you do like 8 hours a year of work. If it's so much easier. Like
certainly has their place for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the Kingston market, and I don't like students.
Students are not necessarily the bad thing, but I caught the last bit of what Matt said, and I don't know the Kingston market personally, but that was the biggest attractor for me in Waterloo. Is the city went just nuts in approving like purpose-built student rentals, and the market was flooded with them from large commercial investors. Like whole neighborhoods went from single family to high density.
Oh,
right?
wow.
Yeah. And what happened was just did way oversupply, to the point where the city was actually rezoning some of it so that way it could be used for affordable housing. So the developers were stuck with these huge condo buildings were only like 30% occupied. And so the city was like, okay, we have an affordable housing problem. Let's turn this into like community housing. So they're in the midst of turning some student rental properties now into community housing projects.
That would suck if you lived there.
It would suck if you live there, but it's bad as an investment, right? Like, because like my rental increases in the last 10 years, so have maybe been, let me just do the rough math. I've maybe had a 20% increase in 10 years in rent. So significantly poor.
Yeah, well, just also that if they have that many units that are available for rent and they're able to, like 30% empty is crazy.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, I've had to keep my rents low to be competitive in that area. It only makes sense because the properties that I have there, like it cash flows well, so it looks good for me on my ratios, my TDS ratios, because I've got a nice chunk of income coming in from these student rental properties, but it's not a good returning property overall. And I will be exiting from it eventually.
Yeah. Your properties are Kitchener-Waterloo, right?
They're all Waterloo, and I only have one left now. I've sold 3, so.
Would you ever go back into doing student rentals?
I never say never, right? I think that, like, if it's the right market, if it's the right opportunity, if all the right things are happening, yeah. Like, I think, our jobs as investors is to find, like, the right opportunities at the time. And I think that right now, Waterloo Student Rentals is not the right opportunity. If I could find student rentals that cash flowed well, that had the fundamentals, like if like there's some good student rentals around, like, I don't know, U of T, some of their further campuses, or maybe some of the college campuses, and the numbers made sense, and there was more than just students holding it up too, then yes, it makes sense. But the problem with students is, like, it's like investing in a market that is like a single industry market. It's like investing in, like, a Calgary, right? If that university's reputation changes or their policies change for admissions, you're adversely affected, and that's so you're really tied to that kind of one driver of population, and then you're a niche of that as well, right? Because you're in students. So
I also wonder how much in Kingston that would students be leaving, like they're going to school 8 months of the year, and then do you have the property sitting empty?
Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons I was, like, for Waterloo, because they have that co-op program, which, like, 90%, 95% of students are enrolled in. So you actually have lots of kids there during the summertime.
So you want to stick around.
That's not the way it is in most universities, right?
It's actually student rentals is a completely separate business model, right? So you have to make sure, for example, run your business properly. What you may be able to do, if the market supports it, is still get those kids into a 12-month lease. Right? The kids are then responsible for subletting. Let's say that they rent the room for you at $500. Maybe they sublet at $350. They're the ones taking the hit, right? During the summer, for example. You just make sure that you are protected and then leave it to the kids. Again, this is market dependent. Does the market support that? I literally just went through this conversation and provided some advisory to my cousin. He has a kid who is entering second year of university in Windsor, right? And you guys all know how I feel about Windsor. But the reality is housing out there, it's about 200,000 for a 3-bedroom, $250 for a 4-bedroom home. And you get, $500 a room, and the numbers can look pretty attractive. But I gave him the same rundown. I said, okay, just know what you're getting yourself into. So, I don't have all the answers, but at least I know the questions to ask, right? So, for example, I said, okay, well, your realtor out there claims that he is a investment expert or student rental expert. Here's a laundry list of 20 questions you should ask him. And I told him, like, you know what? I'll jump on the call with you. We never got to that point, but I was like, I'll jump on the call with you. I'll hear his responses. I'll know within the first 30 seconds whether this guy is worth his weight in salt or not, right? But those things are, what are the student rental rates? Can you get these kids into 12-month leases? What are the kids looking for? If you upgraded your suites and put stainless steel appliances and quartz countertops, are you going to be able to squeeze out an extra $100? Should you put a flat screen TV in there for them, right? There's so many things that you can ask in order to determine whether it's the right investment for you. So I don't know, because I looked at
Well, I
Kingston
think
or Windsor.
Ming's killing it just on
in
the fact that
particular.
if they've overbuilt that much, and they're doing that much to the community.
That was Waterloo, right? That's
Waterloo, not Kingston.
That was Waterloo. That's not Kingston.
Okay.
So the question is, what are they doing elsewhere, right? So Kingston, I don't know. Windsor, I don't know. I haven't looked specifically, but these are if you're going to be looking at those markets, though, these are the questions you just need to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, still, at the end of the day, are there economic prospects? Like, all your properties were in Toronto. You've enjoyed huge growth. Will you? The student rental cash flow will look attractive, and of course, it'll be properly managed and everything else headache free. Will you see any growth, though? Mm-hmm. So I'll give you an example. I'm literally in the middle of selling 4 properties in Edmonton right now because it's been total dog shit out there. My cash flow looks great. A $300,000 investment. I had 4 of them, and I'm selling them right now because they cash flow like $500 or $400 a unit out there. It looks amazing on paper, but several years later, I'm literally selling at what I bought it for many years later. And I've seen no growth. And in fact, like a little bit of cash flow, whatever, all the equity I've built is just wiped away now that I'm selling to those damn realtors. Stupid realtors. But that's a reality. And I've had those for like 4 years, and I'm literally walking away. I'm lucky. And I may be walking away with just what I put it into it. So like, was that a good investment? It wasn't even worth my time, right? I might as well just put it under my pillow, underneath my bed. Anyway, let's. I just want to say hi to a couple people who jumped on here. So I see Sanjeev's here. Niall's been hanging out in the library. Adrian, John, how you doing? Dave, Mario, Adam, JF. I don't know who JF is.
Why is everybody so scared to turn their camera on?
I know.
Join the meeting.
Yeah, I was changing my clothes, Jason. You don't want to see that.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. even Sina doesn't want to see that.
Here we go.
We had a baby somehow. So.
Okay. What I was just gonna say was, turn on your video if you can, or if you're willing to, because otherwise, I'm like staring out into a sea of black.
Yeah.
And it's like, and everyone's like on mute and stuff, and I feel like I'm talking to myself. I'm like, I already know the stuff, so I don't need to tell
you. It makes for better conversations, and you get all the communication, not even verbal. It's just people were shocked.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'll be able to see. People are like, yeah, move on. Then at least I know, right? Okay, cool. Anyway, I'm just gonna get started. Well, welcome, guys. This is our second coffee house chat. First one, I don't know if it was a resounding success, but Jason jumped on. He's a busy guy, so and he came back, so that's gotta count for something, right? But so basically, just like I said in the meetup description, this is totally unstructured. The idea here is just another forum for us to continue chatting, another forum for us to continue sharing and learning. We do a meetup once a month, but the meetup is very structured. It's got a guest speaker or a very specific topic in mind. It's this will just be free flowing. This is for you guys. So there's no real rules of engagement here. So I posted some questions that in the chat. I put the questions that I saw from questions that were posed to me. You guys want to get started with those, or do you have anything else in mind that you want to chat about?
I'd say let's get started with the questions that people have sent us, because thank you for sending us questions ahead of time.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, cool. Let's just do that then. So Here, any new mortgage products for investors? I don't know who sent that, but any new mortgage product for investors? Hey, Jason, what was the
Oh, there was
motives?
that interesting, that one I posted about that new online bank, and they're doing, I think it was not specifically investors, but they had mortgages at, I think it was 3.5% with a HELOC at 3.5%, if I remember the numbers correctly, that was really good.
Yeah, prime minus. It's
Yeah.
actually prime minus 0.2 or something like that.
Yeah, it was nice. I know mine is 1 or 2 points ahead of that.
Yeah, a typical HELOC is prime plus half if you're lucky. Prime. We've never seen. I don't remember ever seeing prime minus. So yeah, that was an interesting post that you shared. I saw that it was for owner-occupied rental properties, 1 to 4 units. So people could take advantage of this maybe. Right. I don't know what all the underwriting stipulations are in terms of what are the how many door limits, what the rental offsets look like, all that stuff. So I don't know if it'll work for bigger investors. But if you're just getting started, you're here starting out. It's also a really cool product.
And what happens if you forget to move into the owner occupied at the end of? not that anybody would do that. But just
or if you're going to be refining, you just ask your tenant if you can put your own photos up on the wall. So anyway, is everyone familiar with what we're talking about? So Meridian launched a new online-only bank, right? So I think it's similar to Simply or Tangerine or whatever. No, Tangerine has physical location, but Simply. And what they're doing is they're undercutting the rest of the industry. So their mortgage rates are lower, HELOC rates are lower. They don't put a HELOC behind as a second mortgage behind someone else's first mortgage. So, I mean, that's pretty typical. But, they don't work through mortgage broker channels either. So, it's something to consider if you're looking to invest, because they'll do a revolving line of credit, a readvanceable line of credit. So what mortgage, although you can, it's a pretty product. It looks to be anyway. I'd be interested to see if anyone really gets one of these. So anyway, that's cool. Thanks for sharing that, Jason. That's cool. Anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's it.
Yeah, I mean the thing that I was most interested in is the fact that they'll use it for 1 to 4 units and rentals. So it's not just your owner occupied primary residence sort of thing. You might be able to get a triplex or duplex, triplex, fourplex under this as well. The other one that I thought that was cool was Teresa, but Teresa was posting in one of our chats that she has a contact at TD who will actually put a second mortgage HELOC. So a HELOC, home equity line of credit, is usually by definition a second mortgage, right? Usually you'll have a mortgage, then you'll have a line of credit. Not always, but that's typical. She has a contact at TD, she said, who actually put a HELOC behind another bank's first mortgage. I was like, holy shit, really? Like I was actually looking for a product like this about a year ago and couldn't find one. So I don't know if it's just this one particular guy who's just pushing it through. I don't know. Oh, there you are, Teresa.
Hey,
tell us about your HELOC behind a first mortgage at another institution.
Sure. Yes, I'm still working through that process, so hopefully we will turn out okay. But yes, basically TD is offering a second position line of credit, home equity line of credit, even if your mortgage itself is housed at a different bank. definitely very surprised about this when we were.
So Teresa, you're a little muffled.
Oh, okay. Let me closer to my to my tablet. Let me see. Let me talk. Sorry. Tell me if it's any better. Is this better?
Nope, it's about the same.
I turn on the camera and the sign language. So let me try this again. So yes, so TD Bank is offering a second position home equity line of credit. From what they told me, it's even a very comparable rate. They said it will be very high because it's a different bank that they're backing up. But even then it was 5 point something %, which is still very, very low.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I'll give you just a point of comparison. So I just took out a $500,000 second mortgage, private, against one of my properties, and I had to pay 10% interest and 2.5% lender fee. Right. So just to give you an idea as a point of comparison, and it's not a line of credit. Like I take it out all at once. I can't take it out when I need it. I have to take it all now. And if I pay it back, I don't have access to it again. So, line of credit at an actual aid lending institution is incredible if they'll do second position against behind a first mortgage elsewhere. So, Teresa, keep us apprised. I want to know more about this, and I'm sure other people do too.
Most definitely. And just to let you know,
Join the meeting.
in my case, I don't have a full-time job right now, so they're still working on it because of the size of my portfolio, so they are very hopeful. But even if it doesn't work out for me, if you have a full-time job, then it makes it that much easier. So that's
so they see you as some unemployed bum.
Yeah. So what are you doing? I should have just said Netflix and chilling. That's my new profession.
You're an unemployed bum with like 12 properties.
Yes. So
Nice.
the good thing is that the person that they assigned to me, she actually invests in real estate.
Okay.
So she got the point of, you're really not, you really are getting money, right?
Okay.
So that was good. But just wanted to give you a heads up. If it doesn't work out for me, it may be because of that, which they've been sort of open from the beginning. But if you do have a full-time job, it makes it a lot easier.
Cool.
So don't feel discouraged by whatever happens. I should know tomorrow or by Friday, according to her.
I have a feeling this contact of yours is going to be very busy in the upcoming weeks and months.
Right.
Specifically from the Volition meetup mastermind. I want to reach out to this person. So I don't know if any of you guys appreciate what this actually means. Does anyone appreciate what this means? Do you understand the significance of what it is that we're talking about here? Okay, so let's
more properties, Matt.
It means you can buy more properties. Yeah. Basically, it's like, okay, imagine this. You buy a property for $1 million, and it goes up to I don't know, choose another number, 1.5 million, right? So you have your original mortgage at 800,000. The new property value is 1.5 million. So what's 80% of 1.5 million? Bigger number. Yeah, John, grab your calculator. I saw. There's one at like 1.28. What is it?
So 1.2, 80%.
1.2. Yeah, of course. That's easy math. 1.2. So I have access, in theory, to another $400,000 in that property. The problem is, let's just say I bought that property a few years ago. Interest rate's really good, right? I have like a sub 3% interest rate. Maybe it's a fixed mortgage. And I don't want to break it because the penalties are high, right? So I got a great interest rate. I don't want to break it because my fees are really high, but I want access to that money, right? So you could go back to your institution, try to get a blended mortgage or a top up. That's what I've done in the past. But if that particular lender doesn't want to lend to you anymore,
Join the meeting.
right? So you're SOL. You can't break the mortgage or don't want to break the mortgage, but you want access to the money. So what I did, I had to go to a private second mortgage lender. So that's where I paid 10% for access to my own equity. What Teresa is proposing, or what she has a contact who's proposing, is a second mortgage as a HELOC behind another institution's first, meaning that I'd still have my $800,000 mortgage with my first institution. I get a second mortgage with TD for $400,000, right? So I don't know. I'm staring at a bunch of blank faces. I'm excited about it, but
I think one of the caveats to note is, so this is a great product for a lot of people, but it won't. So I know it won't work for me. One of the reasons is a lot of my first mortgages, have a
collateral mortgage
on it. Yes, exactly. So it means I can't, depending on how high that collateral mortgage, I can't really take my business to another bank. Now, I may be able to qualify more easily for HELOC at the same bank, but I won't be able to take my business to another institution.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you still need to qualify for this mortgage too, right? So,
yeah.
So, okay, cool. Anything else you want to chat about, or we move on? Okay, moving on. I'm just here to hear about issues some people are having. Thanks for having me. Thanks for coming, if you're actually here. Next, how to structure the legal entities on both sides of the border when investing in U.S. market. Who here is a U.S. investor? You have to come off mute or raise your hand or send me a message. Okay, well, I'm not going to get into U.S. investing if no one's actually here. But is someone actually here who invests in the States?
I don't invest currently, but I'd like to know more about it.
Okay, we'll touch upon it quickly. So we had an accountant last month who, was it last month? Just a couple of weeks ago. Yeah. We had an accountant come in and speak at our meetup, and he touched upon U.S. investing. So there's, I don't remember exactly what he was saying, but he was saying, okay, a couple of things. Number one, apparently Trump, for whatever the hell he's doing down there, is making it more attractive, according to this real estate investor accountant, making it more attractive to invest in the States. He's talking from a taxation perspective. Like, are you going to let the tail wag the dog? I'm not going to invest in a market just because the accounting or the tax efficiencies are going to possibly make it more attractive to invest down there. At the end of the day, you still have to invest because of the fundamentals. You still need to invest because it's a growing area. You need to invest because all the things we talk about, right? Growing economy, more jobs, has to appeal to the millennial population, who's going to be your customer base. Gentrification, transit infrastructure improvements, redevelopment. For example, we talk a lot about Toronto, but I'll use Toronto as an example. Toronto right now has 6.7 million people, and it's projected to grow to 9.75 million people in the next 20 years. That's growth, right? Where's that growth coming from? It's coming from interprovincial migration. It's coming from people moving from small towns because it's a one industry town and they don't have a sawmill anymore. People are also mainly a big push is from immigration. Canada lets in 300,000 immigrants every year, and about just under half, about between 140 and 150,000 come to Toronto every year. So we're experiencing roughly a 47% growth in the next 20 years. So that's growth. If you're looking at investing in the States, you have to look at the exact same things. And you have to make sure that the areas you're investing in have growth potential. You're not just investing there because of taxation efficiencies, right?
May I offer something,
yeah.
Matthew?
Go ahead, Marie.
To speak to the U.S. market, you can look at a website called usproperties.ca. There's a lot more information there on that topic. That's usproperties.ca. I'm not involved with that, so there's no conflict for me to refer it.
Thanks. Thanks, Maureen. Specifically, the question was around how to structure the legal entities on both sides of the border. Taxation is incredibly complicated. I know this because one of my best friends, prior to investing here, started investing down there because chasing the shiny object. It sounded great. Cash flow was high and US market was down and all that stuff, right? He bought a bunch of properties and those doors are being counted against him here in terms of trying to get financing. So he doesn't even have mortgages down there. He just has straight paid off properties. I mean, the properties were only $60,000. So he bought a bunch of them. He bought like, I don't know, a whole portfolio of them, like 10 or something like that. The problem is he comes back up here and goes, hey, you know, I've got my down payment ready. I want to go invest in Toronto or want to buy a duplex, triplex, something, right? Banks go, oh, wait, we see that you have 10 properties down in the States. I don't care that they're paid off. They count against your door limit, right? So those $60,000 properties that haven't grown, that haven't done anything for him, are actually holding him up from investing to continue to investing. So, I mean, a lot of this stuff sounds great in theory. Just make sure it's part of your overall strategy if you're going to invest down there. Cool? Okay, next. Are there any hacks to capital gains like 1031 exchange in Canada? I don't know what a 1031 exchange is. Does anyone know what a 1031 exchange is?
Yeah, in the U.S., you're able to sell a property. You don't pay capital gains as long as you put that money back into another property within a year.
Okay. So is there a way to avoid capital gains?
No.
No. There's you can't avoid capital gains. Sell your primary residence. That's one way. Uproot your family. Any comments, Jason? I saw you. I thought that you were going to say something.
It's just the fact that like that's a huge thing in the States that you know you go to sell a property and you know I sell a property up here and I lose $100,000 in capital gains, and then I go and buy another place literally a week later in the States. You keep that money. Like at the end when you're 65 or 70, you're paying capital gains when you start selling the properties off. But like that's a really good reason to be buying in the States.
Well, just can I clarify something? So Canadians don't, they can't use a 1031 exchange in the U.S. You have to be a U.S. citizen. So there's no advantage to us.
Okay, so this is a moot point anyway. So, I mean...
That's a really good piece of information.
I know. So, for those who've been a Volition investor or a Volition mastermind attendee, you know, like we're not big proponents of buying and selling and flipping these properties, unless that's specifically part of your business model. I want to buy and hold like forever. I want to hold it. I don't want to keep on flipping it, unless it's part of your business model to generate capital, in which case, if it's part of your business model to generate capital by fixing and flipping or wholesaling or whatever, then you can do it in a corporation. You're not going to avoid capital gains, but you can minimize your capital gains, right? Your small business taxation rate, 13.5%, I think it was, something like that. So if it's an active business for you to continue doing this on an ongoing basis, do it in a corporation. You're not going to avoid capital gains, but you can minimize them. But for your long-term buy and holds, I don't want to be flipping them anyway. At the very end, when I've built my portfolio and I'm starting to downsize it in order to pay off debts, in order to have my massive cash flow, I mean, at that point, it's a small drop in the bucket if I'm doing that 15 years from now, for example, right? My properties have all grown in value, my equity has gone through the roof, and I have to pay some capital gains. If that's already built into our business model, it's just price we pay. Okay, U.S. investing. Okay, next one. What markets are you looking at for student rentals? Hey, we were just talking about student rentals. Okay, so what markets are we looking at for student rentals? I'm not looking at any markets for student rentals. I'll be perfectly honest. I'll speak and then I'll open it up to the floor just in case anyone has any thoughts or anything else to add. Student rentals, for the most part, when people talk about student rentals, they're talking about a smaller market. We were just talking, Jason and I and Ming were just talking about Kingston, KW, Windsor, Peterborough, these smaller towns, right? I don't like investing in small towns. I've done it. I'm exiting. Ming's same thing. We bought in small towns. We were enamored by the massive positive cash flow that seemed to pop out of the performance sheet. We chased the shiny objects. Even REIN, top 10 towns. Invest here, invest there. I chased those shiny objects. I am not chasing that shiny object anymore because I know what it comes with. I know the pains that come with. It's not, just make sure that you know what you're getting yourself into. And as Ming had alluded to, if there was a student rental project in an area that we still believed in, so for example, if there was one around Toronto, U of T, downtown areas that still had growth potential, supported by more than just students, yeah, it could make sense. Is there anything on our radar right now? No, there's nothing. Is there anything anyone wants to add?
Yeah, I think I'll add a bit. I mean, I have a lot of student rental experience. That's how I started. I was up to 20 doors, something like that at one point, but I've sold off a whole bunch of properties there. For me, there's a couple of things. One was what Matt touched on. I don't look anymore for a student rental or a triplex or a condo or whatever it happens to be. I look at fundamentals now. So I really care about population growth, therefore, job growth, multiple industries to support the economy, infrastructure, public transit, like all that kind of stuff. That's what I really do. And then I look for cash flow in that market that supports fundamentals, right? So if there's a market that has those fundamentals, now I'm looking for cash flowing projects. And I think I'm flexible enough that it doesn't really matter what that project is now, if I can get cash flow out of it and it's in the right market. The second thing is the return. So at the end of the day, when I went and did comprehensive analysis on the returns I was getting from my student rental properties versus my property in Toronto, it wasn't even close. I was earning almost 3 times the amount of return from properties in Toronto than I was from student rental properties, even though the cash flow was 5 times the amount of my properties in Waterloo. So at the end of the day, I'm not an investor because I'm looking for an okay place to put my money. I'm trying to find the best place to put my money, right?
For sure. Yeah. And I was just mentioning before, it wasn't student rentals, but it was very high cash flow. I was investing in Edmonton, and luckily I just got an offer last week, and someone might be picking up my entire portfolio out there. And just like, it's a godsend. High cash flow, looks great on paper. The reality is much, much different though.
What are some of the negatives?
Sorry?
I said, what are some of the negatives
of student rentals?
Yeah.
Okay, go Ming.
So the big one's return, right?
Oh, okay.
So like for me, if I'm like my Toronto properties are returning 50 to 60% annualized year over year versus my student rental properties are returning like 16 to 20% annualized year over year, right? So it's like, that's not even close. So it's like my money is not going to its highest and best use in a student rental property. Number one, that was it for me. Number two, they're high maintenance. And like, it's not that it's high maintenance, like students are going around breaking things all the time. And they definitely do break more things. I've replaced probably 50 doors in the time that I've like physical doors in the time that I've had student rental properties. So you better make sure that you have a team that can fully execute on things like repairs. And finding a handyman is actually quite difficult. Finding a contractor to do major jobs is no problem, but finding somebody who's reliable to fix small things all the time, challenging. Two, you have to understand what your local market is. Remember, most kids are only in school 8 months of the year. Mm-hmm. So What are you going to do for the 4 months they're not there? What's your plan? Do you have the kind of market that supports full year rentals with subleases? Do you have co-op programs that students are in and out? Do you have to offer a 4-month discount? What kind of layout is there? Are they 5 bedrooms to 1 bathroom and you have to rent out individually and now deal with not only unit to unit issues, but tenant to tenant issues? It's a completely different ballgame. And there's a lot of reasons that management is more difficult. It's not the students themselves. They're just, I hate to generalize, kind of lazy and careless. So it means that rent is always late. 40% of my rent payments from student rentals are late, and I'm always asking them for the rent money. They come up with it, but it's just not on their radar. They're thinking about exams, they're thinking about midterms, and stuff like that. So, it's not like somebody that gives you all these checks ahead of time. Half of them don't have proper banking accounts, so they'd have no checks to issue, or they're getting their parents' checks, so they have to borrow money from friends. Like, it is definitely high maintenance. So those two major things, and the markets aren't close to Toronto. Paying property management becomes, eats up your any return that you're getting. Just doesn't make sense for me. Not at scale, right? Once you get up to a certain scale, it doesn't make sense.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
How was, the exit? Was it easy in case of student rentals? Because I heard that sometimes getting loans for student rentals are also difficult.
Yeah. So the exit was not easy. Much like, and this is the thing about buying properties in a low demand market. You can get in easily, but you're right. The exit is much more difficult. So it took me probably about 7 months to sell one of my student rental properties. That was the longest. The quickest went in about 2 months. But yes, because Waterloo also has licensing rules, lenders want to make sure that the property that's going on sale is properly licensed, meets all the fire requirements. So that's another thing. You have to know what your local licensing rules are. And if it's tough for a buyer to get in, it's going to be tougher for you to offload these properties.
Another question, sorry. Do you have an insight on, there is a new category in Waterloo called as luxury student rentals?
Very familiar. Yeah, so insights onto them, they have oversupply. That's the big thing right now for the luxury student rental market. So people are like, oh, great, I'm going to put in quartz countertops. I'm going to make it all inclusive. So all utilities, students don't have to worry about anything. Internet's included. They get maid service on some of them, and they just play I see Jason rolling his eyes at maid service for students, but that's the
way. Serve it though, and the quartz countertops.
I know. And and they eat Chef Boyardee, right? But that's the reality of the market. However, a lot of people were like, oh, I'm going to jump into this because my cash flow, I could potentially double it. But large commercial investors got into the game, and the city made a terrible mistake by rezoning complete neighborhoods. So in Waterloo in particular, complete single-family neighborhoods were turned into high-density multi-dwelling units. So it went from 5 students in a house to an apartment of 300 units, right? And they suffered from massive oversupply and are still dealing with that issue. So if you've been following the Waterloo market in particular, there have been calls between kind of those investors and the student rental companies and the city to turn them now into affordable housing, right? So Waterloo actually had a lack of nonprofit housing. So now some of those developments are looking to sell back to the city, and the city will be turning them into community housing.
Actually, I heard that recently KW Rent, they are selling all their properties, and and they are just claiming that they'll maintain for a couple of years, because I saw 1 or 2 listings. So I was interested in student rental because one of my kid goes to, Waterloo. Mm-hmm. But the rents they were showing, in the number system and all that, they were showing much higher rents. So I realized that there is somewhere, the gap which a normal investor won't understand, because my kid was paying 600 and they were showing me a rent of 670. I said, it doesn't make sense. If you're buying a 5-bedroom, you're already short $350 per month.
Yeah.
Without doing it So
and,
And your insight is pretty helpful because I was seriously thinking of investing in student rental. Now, I'll have to rethink.
Can I jump in for a sec? Can I just jump in for a sec? Just to be clear, right? So that not everyone is bashing student rental. Waterloo is a market that's very unique to every other market. There's 40,000 student rentals in the country. 20,000 of them are located in Kitchener-Waterloo. So half the country's student rental, condo style built student rental is in Waterloo. In other markets like London, Brantford, Hamilton, it's not the same. Those numbers and metrics aren't the same.
Yeah.
So just to be careful, right? That's a very unique market.
Yeah, very, very true. Like, I'm a Waterloo student rental investor. So yes, my perspective is Waterloo. This kind of massive overbuilding could not be happening other places. I don't actually know. Like, I don't know what they're doing in Kingston. I don't know what they're doing in London. I just know the kind of, what I've been through. That said, though, Waterloo may be a good market for other kinds of investments. There's lots of tech moving into that area, so might be a potential.
And I know thanks, Adrian. Like it's true. Like I know it sounds like we're bashing student rentals. There's a place for student rentals, just like there's a place for every investment. Of course, the perspective that we take and perspective that where we've gravitated towards over time is just bringing our portfolios back to Toronto. So of course, it's just going to be one perspective and a biased perspective. This is where we invest. This is where we live. This is where we've had the most success personally ourselves, right? The Volition team has we've built our portfolios of over 25 million now, personally held properties and over 50 doors because of Toronto, not because of all the other places we've invested in. We're just sharing that one perspective. If there is a different need, so for example, if you are the type of person who needs high cash flow, who absolutely needs high cash flow, then yeah, student rental is great. Just know what that also comes along with. It also comes along with high headache, right? You don't get something for nothing. The trade-off is, you'll get the high cash flow. The trade-off is going to be high headache. Just know what that is, and don't think the answer is I'm gonna have a property manager. I guarantee you right now, if it's your property manager's headache, it becomes your headache, right? Your property manager only does three things: they lease up your unit, they deal with tenant relations, including collection of rent and non-payment of rent and all that stuff, and any issues, and they coordinate repairs. That's it. That's all your property manager does. Anything up and above that, it will become your problem. You'll get a phone call, you'll get an email, and it will become your problem. So just know that is going to be part of your business model. And if that is part of your business model, fine. If you're equipped to handle that and deal with that, great. Again, the Volition mantra is we tout, because we highly believe in scalability and consistency and repeatability. So we want to be able to continue buying, not encumbered by tons of headaches. And so our business model has been focused in downtown Toronto on professional millennials who have good jobs, work for big companies in downtown Toronto, making 60, 80K, university educated, because that's where we've seen the most success, and combined with the least amount of headache. So your headache adjusted return is actually, we see as the highest here. But if if you want just straight return, not a headache adjusted return, then yeah, there's tons of other places to be investing in, right? Just know what those headaches are, and know what those risks are. If you're okay with that, if it's part of your business model, part of your strategy to deal with all that, for sure, absolutely. Thanks, Adrian. That's a good point. I don't want to make it sound like student rentals like the worst investment ever. There's a place for them. You just need to know if it's right for you or not. Cool. Anything else before I move on to the next question? All right. Hi, Matt. What are your thoughts on commercial real estate? Do you own any commercial real estate? If yes, what factors or variables do you consider before buying? It's a big question. So commercial real estate. So there's a couple of commercial real estate. Large multifamily is also considered commercial real estate, just as a point of clarification. So commercial real estate could be retail, It could be institutional, so government. It could be office space, right? So there's a lot of different categories of, or it could be large multifamily. So the reason large multifamily falls under the commercial real estate space is because of lending. So technically anything 1 to 4 doors, you can get residential mortgages on, residential lending, right? I can go to a mortgage broker and just get a normal mortgage. Technically anything above 4, so 5 units and above, falls under commercial real estate and commercial real estate lending. There are some lenders that'll go up to 6, or even there's 1 or 2 lenders that'll go up to 7 or 8 residential units and still give you a residential mortgages, but by and large, it's like 5 and above. So commercial real estate, so we're very familiar with large multifamily. We don't work a lot in the commercial office space, commercial retail, or commercial industrial, light industrial. Those areas really are best suited for those who are approaching their end game. Commercial real estate doesn't make a lot of sense for investors who are starting out. Why? It's very, very, very capital intensive. So the mortgages you get, on a regular residential house, 20% down, right? 80% mortgage. You can't get that though in a commercial type of environment. You really looking at 25, best case scenario, but you'll very rarely see 25, 30% down, 35% down. So you're looking at a good 50% more to be able to buy, in terms of liquid cash available to be able to buy commercial real estate. Also, the lending. So come back to the lending. So when you buy commercial real estate, forget the whole 5-day condition for financing. That will never happen in commercial. You need 45 business days, 60 business days in order to complete your due diligence on commercial lending. So commercial lending, which means that these transactions don't happen overnight, right? So commercial lending, you need engineer structural report, professional appraisal, commercial appraisal, environmental phase 1. If that fails, environmental phase 2. You'll be paying lender fees, lender's legal fees, broker fees. There's just, even out of the gate, you'll be paying 15, 20, 25,000 and just a bunch of these fees just to do your due diligence before you even acquired the property. So does that make sense for a lot of people? That's going to eat up most people's capital, right? It doesn't make sense until you're much, much larger and you start, as you start approaching sort of end game. We use residential real estate to sort of grow, right? Grow our portfolios. Commercial real estate is better suited for high cash flow. Again, you don't get something for nothing. So what does high cash flow mean? What's the trade-off? High cash flow means on paper, you get really high rents. However, if that storefront across the street goes vacant, it could be vacant for 6, 12, 18 months. So that's the risk, right? That's the trade-off. So, and if you argue, okay, well, I'll just buy in a good location. Okay, well, then you're paying for the good location, right? So again, there's no perfect investment. Commercial real estate does have its place. Usually it's, if you are larger scale, end game where you're putting a lot of liquid cash down. Your mortgage, relatively speaking, is only going to be like 60%, 50%, 40%. So you're not highly leveraged. And then it provides you with high cash flow. Again, you need the high cash flow because of vacancy risk, right? So does that kind of give you an idea of, what commercial real estate is, what it's for, who typically uses it?
Yeah, it's good.
Commercial real estate, there's an interesting space actually. So and then you have to look at it. Okay, then you have to look at it from an economic fundamentals perspective. So I keep on looking out my window. I'm in my home office right now, so I keep on looking out my window because there's a vacant. I'm in the annex, right? Like we're primo location, right? There's a vacant place across the street. Right? now. There's a storefront that I keep on looking at. It's vacant. And so that is the reality. So think about this. Think about our economy. We are, all these small shops. What kind of service-based economy are we turning into? We're buying all of our crap online these days, right? Mm-hmm. So think about all these small retailers. All these small retailers, how do they even stay in business? If I can go buy that exact same thing, probably cheaper because of the buying power of Amazon or whatever, I can just order it. I can ship it to my house. I don't need online. I don't need physical retail brick and mortar anymore. So physical brick and mortar, who uses them then? You need certain businesses are always going to be there, like hair salons and stuff like that, corner stores. So you are going to have a segment of tenants, commercial tenants, that will always need brick and mortar. But on an ongoing basis, are you always going to need a small retailer there? You might not. And so something to think about as our economy continues to evolve and move more towards online. I'm going to put this on mute, this guy.
Thank you.
Does that give a perspective? Yeah. So the space that actually may be interesting though is light industrial. So light industrial is this space of commercial real estate. It's like these big warehouses, right? Why? Again, as we start moving towards an online economy, we don't necessarily need these brick and mortar locations in these like amazing A++ type locations, because you don't need the foot traffic. So these industrial warehouses end up being in cheaper areas, and all you're providing these companies with. So it's these small companies. Imagine if you have like an electrician, and or a contractor, or someone who needs to store a whole bunch of materials. Or maybe they're an online retailer themselves. Maybe they have an Etsy store or sell through eBay or something like that. They need space for their inventory still. So where do they keep this inventory? They actually need their own warehouse. So what these warehouses are these large warehouses with a big bay, with a big garage door where big trucks can literally back up into. So that ends up being it's a area of real estate that's starting to pick up just because of the type of economy that we're starting to move into. So online retailers need warehouse spaces. People who do electricians and anyone who does home repairs. So there's a whole bunch of these different groups of people that are starting to need cheaper space. They're not gonna pay in a premium location. They don't need to, but they will need still good highway access and stuff like that. So there is a space in there that we're keeping our eye on, but it's not there yet. And again, in Toronto, it's still quite tough because even spaces that are further out are still expensive. So anyway, it's an area that we're starting to keep an eye on.
Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions about commercial real estate? Oh, actually, I didn't even talk about large multifamily yet. Large multifamily follows a lot of the same. Oh, yeah, there's a bunch of other stuff I'll talk about. Commercial real estate, attractive for another reason. The LTB does not apply to commercial tenants, right? They don't pay the rent, I can come change the locks the next day. None of this crap having to go to the LTB and filing non-payment of rent and all that stupid stuff, right? So it's attractive for that reason. It's a proper business transaction between two parties. They don't pay, boom, I change the locks. I dump all their stuff on the street, right? Another reason why it's attractive, triple net leases. So what does that mean? As a residential landlord, my tenant pays me rent. I turn around and I use that to pay taxes, maintenance, and insurance. right? TMI, not too much information. Taxes, maintenance, insurance. Commercial tenants on a triple net lease pay that themselves, meaning that the rent that they pay me, all I have to do is turn around, pay my mortgage, everything else is cash flow. So it reduces the risk on me because I don't have to worry about insurance, rising costs of property tax. I don't have to worry about the rising costs of insurance. I don't need to worry about them damaging the property because they pay their own maintenance. So it's attractive for that reason as well, because it offloads a little bit of that risk. It's pretty cool. Like if you think of it that way, it's just like, okay, well, whatever mortgage rate I can get, this is my mortgage payment, this is my rent, everything else is cash flow, and it's pretty steady. In our residential leases, our cash flow is highly variable based on, is the furnace going to go, or how much was utilities this month, or stuff like that, right? So that's a pretty attractive component to commercial real estate. Now let's talk about large multifamily. So large multifamily is really just a larger scale of what we currently do, right? So for example, if it's our business model right now to try to acquire an underutilized property, and then maybe we do some repairs, turn the tenant over, get higher rents, and then and then get better cash flow. In residential, there is a possibility for me to get vacant possession. So therefore I can go do those renovations. I can put better tenants in and get the higher rents, right? And the valuation of my property is largely follows that of the residential trend. So if houses in Toronto or real estate in Toronto is going up at 10%, chances are my house, my triplex or fourplex or whatever, also goes up at 10%. Commercial real estate doesn't work like that. Large multifamily doesn't work like that either. Large multifamily and any commercial real estate actually is based on the valuation of the building is based on the net operating income, meaning that it's largely based on the rents it can generate. So let's say that I get I don't know, $10,000 a month in for large multifamily, right? I don't know. Let's just say I have 10 units. They each pay me $1,000. Let's just use some simple math, right? So 10,000 a month, and my goal is to get that up to $2,000 per unit per month. Number one, it's highly unlikely. If I'm acquiring a 12-unit building or 20-unit building, it's almost impossible that I'm going to get vacant possession. I mean, I have like 12 people living there, 20 people living there. It's nearly impossible to get vacant possession, which means that the business model that we employ here, where we try to get vacant possession, do the upgrades, and then rent it out again, we can compress that into like a 8 to 12 month period. That's like a 24, 36, 48 month period in large multifamily, because I'm waiting for the tenants to leave, or I have to incentivize them to leave, or I have to make enough noise in my renovations that they just get bothered and leave, or have to manage them so tightly that we become a pain in their ass and then they leave, right? So like any smoking complaints, boom, you get served with an N5, meaning that you're interfering in the enjoyment of another party. You pay rent one hour late, boom, you get hit with an N4, and we threaten to evict you because of non-payment of rent. Like it's a different ballgame altogether. Can be done. Lots of people do it. Management can be a challenge though. And when you acquire these people, you're acquiring people of this socioeconomic profile. Our business model right now is to acquire, renovate, and only deal with people of this socioeconomic profile, right? So one of the reasons that we always talk about investing in Toronto is because you don't have to deal with, largely, if you do it right, you don't have to deal with people of this socioeconomic profile. That's typically who we deal with if we invested in Hamilton or some of these other places. I know this from experience. I also have invested in Hamilton. And my business model, I don't really want to, but if it's your business model to buy large multifamily, you may have to deal with them, right? So you manage them very tightly, hopefully you can get them out over time, or you incentivize them, and then you do the renovations and you get the rents up to here. So let's say we got the rents from, I don't know, 1,000 a unit to, okay, let's say 1,500 a unit. So our gross revenue is no longer $10,000 a month, it's $18,000 a month, right? I'll give you just some quick math. Okay, so Toronto is roughly, it's sub 5% cap rate. So what that means is the lower the cap rate, that means lower cash flow generally, right? So I won't get into cap rate, it's a very long conversation, but just know Toronto sits at about 3.75% cap rate, 3.75, generally speaking, for an asset like this. So what you do is you take your gross revenue, which is all your rents, deduct all your expenses, and then you're left with net operating income. You take your annual net operating income, you divide by a cap rate, and so you need to know the cap rate in your area. In some of these smaller city centers, it'll be 6, 7, 8% cap rate, right? Depending on the area. Higher cap rate, oh my God, means higher cash flow, right? It's also a measure of risk, right? And so you don't get something for nothing. So think about the math then. If you have this much rent in, let's say, Hamilton, and a much higher cap rate, if you take this much rent divided by a higher cap rate, the valuation of the building comes out here. If I take that same amount of rent, I divide by a lower cap rate, let's say in Toronto, my valuation is way up here, right? So that's how cap rates work. And that's actually how you get the new valuation of your building. So if you go, okay, I got $10,000 in rent a month, I multiply that by 12, I divide by 3.75. Let me do this on a share whiteboard. Okay, could everyone see this whiteboard?
Yes.
So let's say you got 10 units, you get $1,000 per unit. It means $10,000 per month, right? So let's say that generally a good expense ratio is somewhere between 20 and 30%. So let's just use 20%. So 20% expense ratio means that I would have $8,000 per month. So this is gross, and this would be net, NOI. I take 8,000 divided by times 12 equals 96,000 a year. So that 96,000, I don't clear this now. Clear. Okay, 96,000. Let's say Toronto is 3.75% cap rate. So I take 96,000 divided by 3.75. 96,000 divided by 0.0375. And that answer is 2.56 million. That's how you get the valuation of this building. There's very little ambiguity. It's not like, oh, that building down the street sold for 2.25, so I think I should be able to get 2.25. It's not how it works in commercial real estate. It's purely based on the income. The income that the asset can generate. So imagine if I got, instead of 10K a month in rent, I could get that up to 15K a month in rent. That simply means I've increased my revenue, I've increased my net operating income, and I don't know what that number is. It's not 96,000. Let's say it's 150,000 now. So if I was able to increase my building to $150,000 of net operating income, boom, new valuation is $4 million. Right. So anyway, that's just a quick primer on commercial real estate. It's an interesting area. It is not for everyone, and it's definitely not for people starting out. It is much more complicated. There's a lot more pitfalls, and it really only makes sense when you're when you've got more capital to play with. Yeah, cool. Did anyone find that interesting, or is that boring?
Oh, no, very good.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll keep on going. Any other questions about commercial real estate? Okay, a couple other quick questions. Do all the property analysis calculators and percentage rules mainly available through US-based websites? Are they also applicable to Canadian properties? Any exceptions or additions to rules one should remember for Toronto's expensive market? So it's a fairly general question, but I'll answer this with an example. I'm going to share my, okay, can everyone see this? Can you see this, my screen?
VIP investment calculator?
Yeah, so just go to our website. It's volitionprop.com. If you go to volitionprop.com, click on VIP investment calculator. This investment calculator is actually more than enough for a high-level analysis of a property. So if, to answer this person's question, is there, is it different in the States and Canada? It's not hugely different. You just need to know, what your rental income is, what your expenses are, and then we built an investment calculator for you so that you can just simply input purchase price, down payment, your rents, your expenses, and then boom, it'll calculate your cash flow. And not only will it calculate your cash flow, it will actually calculate your ROI as well. And you can do it over time. And you can include rental increases and inflation for expenses. So there's actually quite a bit of sophistication built into this. And then the next question he had was, where can I see GTA deals for practicing property analysis if I have not yet approached a realtor? Again, come to our website. You can come to pre-analyzed properties. We should be keeping this up to date more, but these are example properties that clients of ours have purchased. You'll be able to actually see and run your own analysis. We have them pre-analyzed for you, but you can tweak it as well. So for example, if you came to this one was an awesome property. It was a triplex in Roncesvalles, and it was 1.35 million, and all of the analysis was done for you here. So this is a good place to start. The next question was, here, let me close this now. Okay, next question was, how can one become a part of a syndicate deal? And is it something even a newbie should get into? Okay, syndicate deals. So there's a couple of ways you can invest in syndicate deals. You can be a syndicate mortgage investor, sort of like Fortress, for example, for those of you who are familiar. Or I think the other one, what's the other one? Graybrook, I think it is. So anyway, you can be an investor as a mortgage lender to these developers. Just know what those risks are. Fortress, turned out that they didn't have there's some of their stuff has gone awry. So just know what you're getting yourself into. The thing is, when you're doing that, you're not a real estate investor, or you're not a real estate business. Let me clarify. What we're doing, everything we've talked about here, even though we call it real estate investing, it's not real estate investing. Investing would be an armchair investment, buying a share of Google or a stock of Apple or something, right? Where I don't have to do anything. I'm not running the business. Here, you're buying a real estate business. you're operating a real estate business. So just as a point of clarification, this is not a sort of armchair sort of thing. Syndicates are an armchair sort of thing. So syndicates kind of run in the same realm as REITs, public REITs, private REITs, private mortgage lending, syndicate mortgages. Those are more armchair type of investments, right? So you're not the one kind of running the show. Someone else is running the show. You're investing with them. So it'd be similar to finding a joint venture partner, for example, and the joint venture partner is the real estate expert and you're just the investor. So just know what you're getting yourself into. Some people, a lot of these deals, you are not an owner. You don't own the property. You're not on title, right? You don't own an asset. You own a piece of paper, right? So there are pros and cons. So if you, for example, like if you're investing in a REIT, you don't own any one of those properties. You own a share of a company. Oh, Teo. Sorry, guys. Okay. Go. Okay, sorry about that. I lost my train of thought. Anyway, you're not owning real estate. You're not actually investing in real estate. You are trying to take a shortcut. Again, it's not that it's a bad thing. Just know what the pros and cons are. If I'm trying to invest, next question. If I'm trying to invest in single family homes in Ontario, how do I safely invest and have 10 mortgages under individual name without legal issues? How can I protect myself from any liability in case of mishap or accident at the property due to the renter's fault or no fault at all? Okay, so we answered this question at our meetup last month, the one with the accountant. So I would encourage you, it's posted on our website, go listen to it. The guy was pretty insightful. Most people think that investing and putting stuff in a corporation is going to absolve you of liability. It's not necessarily true. So go listen to that. I'm not going to rehash a lot of that stuff, but I'll point you in the right direction. So the answer is insurance, right? Just get enough insurance. Make sure that you're well protected. Putting into a corporation, you put into a corporation, the thought behind it is that only the assets within the corporation are exposed to the people who are suing you. The reality is much different though. Like in order to get the mortgage for the property that's held within the corporation, I had to personally guarantee the mortgage anyway. So that veil of infallibility that you think you have is gone. So, when they go to sue, they're going to sue everyone, including you and all the assets you own, not just within the corporation. So it's great in theory, but in practice, the reality is much different. How do I get 10 mortgages? Okay, well, I mean, you got to talk to a mortgage broker. A guy like Dave Gonzalez at Vine Group is going to have a blueprint in which they'll navigate you through which lenders to use at which point in time in order so that you're not going to hit the financing wall too early. So if your goal is 10, you tell him that and he'll go, okay, well, maybe we take you to Desjardins now and we take you to CIBC later and then we take you to Scotia after that, right? So I don't know what those are, but in order the general rule is make sure you treat your mortgage portfolio like your real estate portfolio. For most people, mortgages are an afterthought. They shouldn't be an afterthought. Because if it's your aspiration to buy one or two, sure, you can go anywhere. Any dumbass mortgage broker or mortgage specialist can do that. The trouble you run into is when you're into like 3, 4, 7, 10 properties, it becomes a lot trickier. Let's see. There's a guy who's trying to push his deal here. Okay, not sure if this is the right form to ask. What's your take on private REITs that focus on student housing across Canada? So we just talked about student housing. You know, it can make sense. REITs, so a public REIT versus private REIT, right? So public REIT, publicly traded, meaning that there's a lot more transparency, regulators and all that stuff. Private, you just need to know who you're investing with, right? So there's private REITs or GPLP structures out there. there's a bunch of them who are reputable, but private REITs don't have their books fully wide open. So you just need to make sure that you know who you're working with. I hate to give you a stupid general answer like that, but it's going to depend on REIT by REIT and managing partner by managing partner. Some people at REIN are quite reputable. They run some big ones. They're not necessarily REITs, but they run a GPLP structure in which they're the general partner. You become a limited partner. You buy into shares. You buy these units from them. You're not buying actual physical units, but you buy shares or units out of this structure, and they operate everything. So I know some reputable ones. Message me and I'll share their names with you offline if you're interested in getting into the space. How much of a demand is there for home inspectors in Ontario? Yeah, every time we buy a property, we should be. Most times we buy a property, unless there's a good reason to, we should be getting a home inspection, right? We don't in certain instances if there's competition, if we're short on time, or if we're gutting a property anyway, we don't really need too much assurance. But generally speaking, yeah, there's a lot of demand for home inspectors. So if you are, this is from Niall. Is he still here? Okay, cool. Is it because you are thinking about becoming a home inspector? Yeah. Yeah. So we use home inspectors. Just beware of the limitation of home inspectors. So home inspectors will always tell you, we don't have X-ray vision. We can't see through walls. We're not going to move stuff. We're not going to. They always say that. So the usefulness of a home inspector is limited, but their insights can be valuable.
So it's not liable for anything, right?
They make you sign something where they actually say, we're not liable for anything we missed. We're not liable for anything we couldn't see. We're not liable if it turned out that there was termites and we didn't know. Buyer beware, sort of thing. So, it helps to have another set of eyes. That said, we've been, the Volition team has been in and out of houses so much that we can often % of what a home inspector would pick up on anyway, or report on. We're not home inspectors, but we just have enough experience. We go through them and we can often point out a lot of the deficiencies. But home inspectors will sometimes have specialized equipment that we won't have. They'll go into the basements and they'll take moisture readings in the basement walls and stuff like that. So they'll be able to do a little more than what we're able to do. So there definitely is a market for them. And if you ever become a investor-focused home inspector, there will be no shortage of business coming from the from the Volition client base. Niall, I heard demand for an inspector is low because demand for houses is so high, so sellers can choose a buyer who isn't insistent on an inspection. True. Well, demand for houses is high, yes. Sellers can choose a buyer who isn't insistent on an inspection, yes. That said, we see tons. You're assuming that there's going to be a multiple offer situation, which is true. Multiple offer situation, you can choose the seller can choose the buyer who doesn't have a home inspection clause or a condition, but the other guy might be giving you more money. So it's not a definitive, sellers can choose who to sell to, therefore there's no home inspection. There's a lot of factors. So I wouldn't say the demand is low. The other thing is that in a multiple offer situation, what we often see is the seller doing a pre-listing home inspection in order to circumvent any issues or any conditions on the offer. So it can be an unconditional firm offer on offer date, right? So still a home inspection was done, right? So there is demand for home inspections. Yeah, I wouldn't be too worried. I mean, here in Toronto, we see home inspections all the time. Yep. Cool. Any other questions? So we're running overtime, as we always do. I'm going to quickly launch this. Okay, Niall was asking a question. The seller's paying for the inspection. Is that not a conflict of interest? I mean, it's an independent party providing it. So, I mean, the buyer is more than able to still do his own home inspection if he wants to. We do see it. The buyers do depend on them. They do rely on them. We haven't seen too much of an issue. Cool. So I was launching a quick poll. Basically, how'd you like this format? This is only the second time we've done it. How'd you like this? How do you like this Coffeehouse chat format? Still trying to get some feedback. Is it valuable to you? Would you come again? Right. So anyway, answer those questions. Yeah. Any other questions, feedback before we start signing off? Wait, anyway, just go off mute and tell me.
I loved it.
Yeah? Was it useful for you?
Yes, it's my first time and I think it's pretty insightful. Okay. I actually signed up for your next one also.
Ooh. Someone who's proactive. I like it. What about the rest of you guys?
Really easy to, like, it's easy for me to, I've just replied to, 3 job applicants and, 2 renters and able to do all of this. Like, it's much easier to fit this in the schedule than it is to get out.
So basically you weren't really listening to us at all.
Pardon?
Yeah, exactly. Niall said, thanks a lot. Very helpful. Cool. Adrian said, if anyone wants to ask more questions about commercial, I've been involved in commercial for 25 years. Sounds like he's your go-to. So go to Adrian if you have any questions on commercial. Yeah, you guys like the format though? Is it good?
Good.
It was designed just to be a kind of a free-flowing thing, right? So hopefully it's been useful for you guys. Okay.
Yeah, it's my first time joining, so yeah, everything was really good. Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. It's really funny. So my best friend, his name's Jason Tong. And I was like, oh, Jason, what are you doing? No, that's cool. That's cool.
Nice. Yeah.
No, thanks. No, cool. Thanks. If you guys want to continue this chat further on sort of a one-on-one basis, the Volition team provides a complimentary free 60-minute advisory consultation. So in these consultations, we'll basically go through where you're at currently, where you want to go, and help you build a plan to get there. So it's really this kind of missing piece that we see in the real estate industry. Most people are going to be like, okay, if you wanted to invest in real estate, where would you go? Normally you go talk to your realtor, maybe, or a financial planner, but like, who really knows about investment real estate? Who's there to provide you unbiased advice and guide you through the entire transaction? So that's really where the Volition team comes in, and that's where our advisory services come in. So we want to be that helping hand to help you through the entire process. So if you are interested in real estate, investing in real estate in Toronto, drop us a line, and one of the team will get back to you and set up a individualized consultation with you. Cool. All right. So let's see the results of these poll. Can everyone see the results?
Yes.
Yeah. So looks like people liked it. Whoever stuck around. There's only 7 of us now. No, cool. That's good. Thanks for the feedback, guys. And if you want to provide more feedback, just drop me a line or give me a call. And next meetup in 2 weeks, we are getting an expert in executive rentals. So a strategy to boost your cash flow. One of the challenges that we're seeing in Toronto, as you know, is prices are going up. And as much as rents are going up, they're not going up fast enough to still compensate for, let's say, the negative cash flow that you'd be getting if you buy a condo at 20% down. Right now, buy a condo, 20% down, normal condo in a pretty good neighborhood in downtown Toronto, King West or something like that, you're going to be cash flow negative $200 to $400 out of the gate. Not very attractive. So what do? Volition is looking to provide solutions. We identified these as problems. What do we do about them? Do we cry and whine about them? No, we're going to take some action, right? So one of the things we're exploring right now is using executive rentals in order to boost rents and boost our cash flow, thereby supporting our acquisition strategies. So imagine now I can buy a condo in downtown Toronto and no longer be cash flow negative, right? Pretty good proposition. So we have an expert who, they're a leader in the industry. They're going to be coming on, I don't know, whatever day we're holding the meetup, 2 weeks from now, whatever that is.
The 16th.
16th? Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, so.
17th, the 17th.
17th? Okay, so April 17th, come on out and learn about this. And this will be applicable across the board, even if you have rentals, investment properties already, and you're looking to take it to the next level. So I know, for example, Jason, I know you were doing that, and you were kind of Airbnb-ing, and you were, you got a firm who was handling this.
Mm-hmm.
This could be of interest to people who even have, triplexes and fourplexes in really good areas, right? Or if you already have condos in really good areas in downtown Toronto, this is a strategy that could be applicable across the board.
I'm really interested to see how because I tried 2 different firms to try and get it in, to get in people to do the furnished rental, and had no luck over the course of 2 months. Then I did Airbnb, and I now have a guy in for the last 6 months that's doing long-term furnished rental, and it's great. But I'd love to see what their strategy is. I don't know. Maybe I just hit the wrong time of the market, or 2 terrible firms.
We're just starting. We're starting our relationship with this guy right now, so I can't say for sure that this guy's going to be, Volition's strategic partner, and this guy is going to be kind of the be all and end all. Right now, it's in our beginning stages to be able to see whether this is a viable and sustainable strategy. That said, when I did have my conversation with him, he was extremely knowledgeable. He was a leader in this industry. I don't know whether it's location specific, whether he's, we haven't nailed down all the details of what that means. Maybe he won't go into freehold, or maybe he won't venture outside downtown Toronto, right? So there are certain things we're trying to work out right now. But if it's a good strategy, just as a point of comparison, I also spoke with that firm that Florence sent. Her name was Erin at Rent It Furnished. Did you contact her? Was she one of the?
Yeah.
Yeah, she
sucked.
Yeah. I didn't say.
Email replies were like weeks late, like a week later, and in 2 months she brought, I think, 1 or 2 people through.
Yeah. So when I spoke with her, she was extremely weak compared to, the caveat is that I think she's like one of the leasing specialists. I don't gather that she's sort of like the owner or CEO of this company. The gentleman I did speak to, at the person we're bringing in, was the managing partner of his firm, though. So was that part of the reason? I don't know. But all I do know is I was impressed with this guy. I was not impressed with her. So, yeah. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Good. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out, guys.
Bye, guys. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.